Good afternoon. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, but bear with me. Hopefully, I will make it worth your time. I'm here today as a AI optimist and believer, right? I passionately believe and I evangelize that traditional industries and organizations must embrace and embed AI at scale in order to enhance their value creation. Today, I'm here before you to actually share our learnings at Z as we endeavor to do the same. Our business is, in fact, like any media and entertainment business, consists of two critical elements. The first is creating content IP, right? So we create content IP, and then we seek to monetize that content through a variety of business models: licensing, syndication, advertising, and subscription. So that's our business. We produce content, we monetize content, and everything else is actually in furtherance of these two elements. Now, coming to Gen AI, the Gen AI and journey in the media and entertainment industry is truly underway. And there are two examples that kind of exemplify this. First is there's a movie called Frost, and do Google it and look at it. It's one of the first movies that has been created entirely using AI. Yeah? It's a 12-minute movie, and it was created by a company called Waymark using DALL-E 2 and DID. Yeah? The other example, and there are many such examples of how this journey is well and truly underway in the media and entertainment industry. The other example is there's a startup called Cypher, for example. They are seeking to introduce generative AI into the creative workflows in Hollywood production houses. So that's just a flavor of the fact that we are in the middle of this change and transformation. And therefore, how do we respond to this as a company? One of the best ways to think about this, at one level, we can feel disconcerted. We can feel that this is a disruption. At another level, we can see this as an opportunity for enhancing value creation, elevating our roles, and elevating our jobs. Yeah? And one of the best examples of this is the highest rated chess player of all time, Magnus Carlsen, and how he uses AI. He uses Leela and Stockfish to actually train his intuition, yeah? to simulate his creativity. So he's using it to augment his creativity, intuition, and intelligence. Yeah? And in fact, his coach and they actually believe the fact that as a result of that training, his unpredictability and his creativity is the edge in the games and the deciding factor. So the human being is the edge in the deciding factor. The AI is the enabler. And therefore, the way we are approaching this transformation is to augment human creativity, intuition, and intelligence. What does that mean in terms of the landscape and therefore our approach? There are 5 ways to think about the opportunity landscape. The first is classification and clustering. Essentially, LLM models are helping you create a large embedding space, and therefore, using LLMs, you can better identify, let's say, audience segments, and you can optimize audience targeting. Yeah? The second opportunity landscape is extracting metadata from unstructured data for any other value creation objective. The third is taking any content or artifact and summarizing and distilling the essence of it. Then there is Q&A. We are all familiar with ChatGPT. There is generation of all kinds, text, audio, and video, which is, let's say, mid-journey and stable diffusions. So that's our opportunity landscape. But there's a point that I'd like to mention here. We see Gen AI as a part of the AI toolkit. In fact, I believe supervised learning, along with generative AI, will be the 2 biggest value creators in the AI toolkit. So we see it as a part of that toolkit in how we approach this opportunity landscape. So what are we doing at Z? The first thing is AI needs data, and data is the source of competitive advantage. So one of the first things that we did is we ensured that data that lay in different parts of the business was brought together into a unified data platform. We ensured significant amount of discipline in the operation of that data. If data is the source of competitive advantage, it's then the soil that needs to be nurtured with discipline and care. And that became for us a single source of truth. Then you need to create bandwidth, right? You need to create bandwidth for us to embrace the AI journey. In order to create that bandwidth, we created a data intelligence hub that operated on that single source of truth and made data and analytics available to the business on the tap, right? So the data platform and its underlying pipelines are centralized, but the access to data analytics is decentralized and democratized through the data intelligence hub. That then created the bandwidth for us to embed and embrace AI at scale. And that, I think, is a very fundamental, critical step, which you even heard the previous speakers talking about. Then, as we move forward, we said, okay, what are the 4 elements we need to do as we seek to embed and scale up AI within the organization? The first is clearly we are focused on business imperatives, and we are focused on revenue, productivity, and experience outcomes. Yeah? The second, like I said, you need to build trust. And one of the key ways to build trust is what we call the co-pilot architecture. It is to ensure the user and therefore the human being is at the center of the design, in the loop and in control, right? And when you address these 3 factors, putting the human being, the business user, whether it's an internal user or the viewer, in the center of the design, in the loop and in control, you actually enable trust and you accelerate adoption. Yeah? In fact, in the creation of a GenAI application, about 35 to 40% is the data science and data engineering part. The rest of it is about product design, the UI UX interface design, and other elements. Yeah. The third element was clearly spending a lot of time having created the unified data platform, having bought data, to actually build the necessary gold standard data sets. And therefore, spending time in collecting, curating, cleaning, and building that data set. And finally, since we are walking and chewing at the same time, learning and contributing at the same time, we needed to ensure that there was a way of accelerating execution. And therefore, we are using hackathons as a way of accelerating execution. We're not using hackathons for ideation. We are using hackathons to move from idea to production-ready applications, yeah? As a way of execution. So that's our approach to generative AI. There are 5 or 6 use cases that we have focused on, and we are continuing to add to the list. Content creation, content marketing, content discovery, automated subtitling, transcription and dubbing, and advertisement generation. Yeah? What I'm going to do is take you and give you a flavor of each one of them. So one of the first things, and you'll hear more of this as we go forward in the public domain, we already have our first generative AI application in production being used by the business, right? We call it Script GPT internally. It basically takes our TV shows. We have uploaded our TV shows as the underlying data set. It analyzes the story. It identifies story components that are working. It helps the dialogue writer simulate story scenarios, tells the dialogue writer what works or not works, creates a, let's say, 2/3 ready script. So the dialogue writer can focus on actually the secret sauce and magic of making the dialogue awesome, yeah? And provides even concept testing for new story ideas. Then we have Rag AI, which is an Indian music generator for creating background music score. And rather than talk about it, let me give you a sample of it. So here are 3 music tracks. I want you to hear them. And then I'm going to ask you to distinguish whether they were created by a human being or AI. Yeah? So let's play this game. track 2. Track 3. Right. So let me ask it in the reverse order, right? Was track 3 created by a human or AI? How many of you believe it was a human being? Raise your hands. Right? So about 3% believe it was a human being. What about track 2? How many of you believe it was human or AI? Yeah? So how many human? Raise your hands so that I can see. Right. So about 15% feel it is human, right? 15, 20%. What about track 1? Was it human or AI? How many of you believe it is human? Right? Again, about 15 or 20%. Obviously, this is a session about generative AI, so the best guess is it is AI. Yeah? Well, track 1 was the only human snippet. So you can see how close track 2 came to track 1 because you had a similar this thing. Yeah? And track 3 was a variant where we pushed the hallucination or the exploration to a limit. Yeah? So that's telling you what's happening in this world. And we are now working on how do you fit this to a TV show as a part of the background score. Moving forward, we are working on 74% of our viewers want to watch our shows, whether it's TV shows or movies, with subtitles. Yeah? We want to make the life of the subtitling artist easy. And therefore, we are using large language models to make subtitling easy. It is doing that by extracting the meaning and essence of that and taking away the problem of literal translations. And then we are moving forward with converting this into transcription and dubbing use cases. I've talked about how we are working on the content side in terms of uplifting and adding value to our content during the production phase. But once we have produced the content, we need to evoke desire about that content through the content marketing work that we do. And for that, we have a content marketing suite which enables our content marketers to truly understand what's working in a particular show and therefore leverage that to evoke desire amongst viewers to watch our shows and movies. Yeah? On our OTT platform, we are using LLMs and knowledge graphs to actually improve our recommendation systems and create a personalized channel and page for our viewers. And finally, we're doing this for search as well, making search truly both semantic and conversational, so that as you move forward and you experience our OTT platform, you could go to our search UI and actually say, I'm bored, and it will recommend relevant content for you. You don't have to be, you don't have to have clarity about what is it that you're searching for. So I've talked about content production, content marketing, content discovery, right? The last use case that we are working on is actually once we have produced the content, we've got advertisers who are seeking to advertise on the content. There is a large sort of advertisers who don't have access to resources, right? And again, this comes back to the point of AI for good. We want to make their lives simple as publishers. So we have content assets and content IP. How do you give them those assets and IP in order for them to actually generate advertising, version it, publish and scale it, and deploy it, and then measure and analyze their deployment in terms of their business outcomes? So how do you simplify that for a large, small to medium enterprises and digitally native brands? Yeah? So that's effectively what we are doing within Z. We're continuing to add this. We've begun the journey. We've taken the first step in this journey of 1,000 miles. We're feeling really good and proud about what we are doing, and as you can see, we have already stuff in production. But there are 3 things that I'd like to leave you with. Yeah? We are advocates for this technology, all of us within this room and outside this room as a community. Any technology is only as good as the craftsman who creates it, right? You can never design the world for that 1 or 2% people who will misuse technology. You design the world for greater good. So we as a community must embrace this tech with a spirit of optimism and positivity. Yeah? In order to do that, we need to, I think, do 3 things, and I'm sure there'll be more learnings along the way. I'm not for the moment saying we have figured it all, but we are definitely on that way. Right? The first is discipline around data collection, curation, and transformation. Data is the new soil. It's not the oil that you burn and forget about. It's the soil that needs to be nurtured, cared for, right, every single day as an asset. Yeah? And you need discipline around it. You can build discipline around it even as you democratize it. The second thing is elevating the role of product design. Yeah? It is not about creating data solutions and models. They are important, but it is about putting the human being in the center and designing an application that works for that user, that human being at the center. And finally, in the design, you're ensuring that that user stroke viewer feels that they are at the center of the application. This is designed for them. They are in the loop, and they are in control. Yeah? So that's the journey at Z. I'm proud to present it to you on behalf of the entire organization and the technology and center innovation team. Our president is here in the audience. So I'm proud to be here representing the team. Open for some questions if you guys have the time.
Hello, sir. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm Kamal, and I'm a screenwriter. I think I have the first rights to ask questions when it comes
Absolutely.
to media. Yeah. So the first question, I have 2 questions. The first question is, when can I expect the first fully generated AI film from India? And let's say, hypothetically, I've been using tools of late, let's say text to image, and then I use that image to make it into a video, and then I can add music to it, and then I can just make the character talk. We are just in the beginning stages. So hypothetically, when will the first fully AI generated film will be, we can expect it in India? And second thing, if I produce it and if I make it, will Z buy it?
All right. All right. So that's an interesting question to start off with. So the first thing I want to tell you is if I could predict the future, I'd rather predict the stock market. I'd make more money that way. I think the first thing I would like to say to the question is fully generated AI film, what do you mean by that? I think language is important. And for us, when you're saying human in the loop, it is a human-machine interface, right? It's a new paintbrush to paint your dialogue, to write your story. And therefore, to me, I have a problem with the word fully generated AI film. In fact, my bosses in the audience can tell you how I defend and actually prevent that urge to say this is fully AI generated, even though I am leading the AI practice. Yeah? So it is a human-machine interface. You are leveraging the paintbrush to paint a better story. Yeah? And therefore, the answer to your question is we are already using AI to create better stories. It's already in production. Right? So that's the first answer to the question. But do I want to do fully generated? Never. Because like I said, I went back to the example of Magnus Carlsen. I'm using AI to enhance my creativity and intuition. And as you move forward, human creativity and intuition will provide the edge. What happens in day-to-day work is I get so bogged down in getting that story out and trying to sell it that I don't have time for my creativity and letting my creativity do work. Right? So to me, the role of AI is to allow you as a screenwriter to really explore your creativity, and that needs space. And that space gets created by embracing AI. Yeah? And as Z, like I said, whether it is created by human beings or human plus machine, we always buy good stories. right? So we are always buying great stories. We are always on the lookout for great stories, right? And I'm happy to connect with you more on the sidelines. Thank you for that question.
I have one question.
Sorry, yeah, I'll come back there after that.
Recently, there was a case between the Writers Guild and the Hollywood production, right? So for 170 plus days, that case was going on, that strike was going on. So do you think like AI is actually overriding the rights or creativity of these people? Because that's what is happening. And what AI is learning, it's from the data, right? Which these guys have produced over the years. And now it's infringement and other things are happening through AI. So how we take it forward?
Great. That's a great question, and there are actually two questions in your question, right? First question is around IP and what data has been trained. So we are training our models on, right, IP that we own, right? So that's the first question. So it's IP that we own, that we've created, that addresses this. And I don't want to get into the IP, this thing, but it's a fair question. And that's why I said we as a community have to be responsible evangelists, right? This leverage of technology should be for good, yeah? The second thing I would say to you is that at the end of the day, who created AI? Human beings, yeah? So a lot of it ends up in this fog of business wars. We lose the plot. But I'm an AI optimist. I believe in humanity and human beings' ability, right, to overcome every hurdle along its way. And unlike the Western world, on the Eastern world, we as Indians are far more collaborative and collectivist society. So to me, the other thing that we often discuss at Z is how do we bring this collaborative, collectivist culture into the AI domain as a force for good. So that's the contrast I'd like to paint vis-a-vis the incident that happened in the West in Hollywood. Yeah, there was a question up here in front.
It was actually very similar to what that gentleman just asked.
Sure.
I was just trying to figure out how do you protect yourself from any copyright infringement or any plagiarism-related lawsuits? Because how do you know that it's not taking anything from the public domain? But I guess the way you are doing it is you're technically protecting it. Is it like inside your private cloud? Like, is there a deployment angle to it as well, technically?
Yeah, so it's built on our own data sets, and it's within our cloud environment. Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, so I have a question, and this is very much similar to.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So I have a question which is very much similar to what they have asked. AI works on the data that you have given or on the similar things that has happened in the past. Don't you think with AI and all these tools, people will lack in the new creativity in the fields of music, art, and all the film directions? Because even in the content creation, we haven't seen anything which is out of the box coming from AI. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So first, I don't want to take away from what we are going to put out into the public domain, but let me answer your question conceptually, right? So what has happened in this world? What's happened really with large language models? What's happened is with large language models, what are large language models? They're a representation in some massively multi-dimensional space, right? So it's an embedding space that you're creating, and a query is nothing but it is defining the search space for a response, yeah? So when you're creating these representations at such large scale, a fascinating outcome, which people are still philosophically debating and understanding how does it happen, is that its response becomes, feels like a human being's response. But we know one of the problems with that response is hallucination, yeah? Because the model is connecting. After all, it's nothing but a predictive model. It's just predicting what is next in the sequence within that space, yeah? The hallucination, which is a weakness for some use cases, right? Let's say the hallucination is a weakness for agent use cases. It can lead to reward hacks, and it has a goal direction problem, right? Is actually a strength in the creative use case, yeah? But having said that, again, I'm reinforcing this concept of the human-machine interface. The human being is in control. It is the human being, right, leveraging the AI to enhance their creativity and intuition. So here are a couple of examples that happened. Peter Hein and Nielsen in a webinar, they talk about this. There was a particular move. It was a pawn move from h4 to h3, right? All pundits, everybody said, this is a absolutely ridiculous move, right? But in the AI simulation, right, that move came up repeatedly. And what they realized is that move combined with a sequence of moves, right, playing a slightly more long game, right, opened up many more creative fronts and doors. Yeah? You're discovering similar such creative unlocks when in protein discovery, right? So the question for us is, how do we as human beings use it? Don't get wedded to the tool, right? And this risk of the fact that we say, ye AI ne bola hai, right? Or this is from AI, or getting constrained by the tool is a real risk. But as human beings, as conscious human beings, as evangelists, we have the ability to fight that and use it appropriately. So any tool is only as good as the craftsman. Yeah? I can see that the questions are really good questions and are really good risks. But like with any tech, we have to use it appropriately as a craftsperson using that tech. So it's a new paintbrush to make your paintings better, to make your stories better, to make your videos better. It actually should unlock human creativity because you now have the space and bandwidth. You're not trying to meet a script deadline, right? That's what you're attempting to do.
So, sir, with that, would we be venturing into the place of ethics? How do you control and how do you even establish an ethics around this generative AI?
So that's a broad question, but what about ethics, right? There are many elements of ethics. One element of ethics is IP and IP protection and making that transparent, yeah? So at one level, as organizations, how do you make that transparent? How do you open yourself up and how do you go on that journey? At another level, right, organizations that have built these LLMs, right, they are, they are building this concept of watermarking so that it is visible and transparent to the consumer, yeah? So there are real ways to navigate these issues in lots of use cases, and in the media and entertainment world, right, we are putting human in the loop. So the human is still accountable and responsible. It's a bit like flying an aircraft. The pilot and the co-pilot flies the aircraft. They're accountable, they're responsible, but a lot of it is automated. And they have to, their job is to anticipate a potential pitfall and ensure that that does not happen. Their job is to navigate rapids, yeah? But there are out there certain use cases which I don't think we have found solutions, but I'm confident we'll find solutions, right? Let's say the problem with reward hacking with autonomous agents, yeah? And do we need some regulation? Sure, I think regulation will evolve. I think we as evangelists need to play a role into evolving that as a force of good, yeah?
Hi, over here.
Sorry, yeah.
Firstly, thank you for your presentation. Not specific to Z, but a very generic question. How would you deal with biases in creativity?
Yeah. So biases, right, is a challenge. But the reality is first you have to recognize the problem, yeah? And then you have to say, where does the biases flow from? There are biases that are embedded in your data. There are biases that are embedded within the system. There are biases in the way you use it, yeah? So there are people ways to use it by using diversified teams, by following a certain application design process, yeah? I think it's, again, less of a challenge in the media and entertainment use case as long as you create a responsible AI guardrail for your teams, right? But yes, and increasingly what people are finding is that as they recognize it, as they work on it, they're finding ways and means to mitigate. The reality is these biases, by the way, exist in the data sets and in our actions as human beings, right? All AI is doing it by using our data, it is bringing it to life, yeah? So again, I think there is it is the right question, but it's not the reason not to embrace the technology. It is one of the things that we need to solve for by embedding ethics and responsibility at the heart of the design, which is one of the things that we do. But I didn't want to make that the subject of this topic. That's a whole other topic.